Ethan never thought an alien wedding would change his life. He was just a human engineer, working on peaceful missions between Earth and other planets. When the message came from the royal house of Theralus, he first thought it was a mistake. But the invitation was real. He had been asked to attend the wedding of Prince Velek, the eldest son of King Thalos of the Zelari Empire. The Aeolus was a beautiful world. Soft purple skies, floating gardens, and tall crystal towers that hummed. In the wind, the Zelari were tall, graceful beings with skin like smooth silver and glowing eyes. They could not speak with mouths, but with soft telepathic voices that echoed directly inside one's thoughts. They were known for their culture, wisdom, and strict royal traditions. When Ethan arrived, he felt out of place. He was the only human, guest among hundreds of alien nobles. He wore a simple black formal suit, while the others wore flowing robes that sparkled under the twin suns. The wedding was grand. Music made from light and scent floated in the air. The bride and groom stood, surrounded by glowing flowers that responded to their emotions. Everyone cheered in their own alien way. Ethan stood quietly near a tree that had silver leaves. He had no role to play, so he simply observed. As he looked around, he saw a small path behind the garden. It seemed less crowded, more peaceful. Wanting a break from the noise, he followed it. The path led to a quiet part of the palace grounds. Soft water flowed in tiny channels along the ground, and the air felt cooler. Then he saw her. A Zelari woman was sitting under a pale blue tree. She wore a long white dress, and her face was turned up slightly, like she was listening to the sound of the wind. She didn't move when he came closer. Instead, she said in a soft, warm, telepathic voice, "You are not from here." Ethan blinked. Surprised? "No, I'm from Earth," he replied out loud. "I know," she said. "Your mind feels different, gentle but curious." He smiled and stepped closer. "I hope I'm not disturbing you." "Not at all. I like company." "Don't come here." He sat on a nearby bench. "I'm Ethan." "I am Leora," she said. Only then did he notice something strange. Her eyes, though glowing like other Zelari, did not follow movement. They remained still, unfocused. Her hands moved slowly, tracing the pattern on her dress. She was blind, and her voice held a stillness that felt different from other aliens he had met, calm but distant. They talked for a while, mostly about the wedding. Leora asked about Earth, its oceans, its wind, and its smell. Ethan told her stories about rainstorms and snow and trees with birds. She smiled often. Her voice inside his mind was gentle, like a song without sound. After some time, Ethan asked, "You didn't attend the wedding?" She tilted her head. "I was not expected to. I am not the star of events." He felt confused. "But you were part of the royal family?" "Yes. I am the daughter of King Thalos. But I was born blind. My body is weak. I do not shine like my brothers. So they hide me away in quiet gardens." Ethan looked at her and said, "I think you shine brighter than anyone else I've met here." For a moment, she didn't reply. Then he felt a soft pulse of warmth in his mind. It was her laughter. Not the sound, but the feeling, pure and kind. They sat together until the suns began to set. The light turned soft and golden, touching the silver leaves. Leora asked if he would visit again. Ethan said, "Yes," without thinking. In the days that followed, they met again and again, always in the same quiet part of the garden. He talked about everything: space, stories, dreams. Leora would ask him to describe colors and shapes, and he would paint pictures with words. In return, she taught him how to feel the world through sound, air, and even silence. Soon the palace staff began to notice. Whispers started. Why was the human always meeting the blind daughter? What did he want? Some thought it was pity, others thought it was foolishness. But King Thalos watched. Silently, he never said anything. He only listened to the reports and kept his thoughts hidden. Ethan didn't care about the whispers, just enjoyed Leora's company. She made him feel calm, focused, and needed. And for Leora, Ethan was the first being who treated her like a person, not a weakness, not a secret. One afternoon, while sitting together, Leora reached out and gently touched Ethan's face. Her fingers moved across his cheek, his nose, and his lips. "You smile often," she said. "I like that." Ethan chuckled. "I smile because I'm happy when I'm with you." She paused. "I didn't think someone like you would say that to someone like me." He looked at her seriously. "Someone like you? You mean strong, smart, kind, and beautiful?" Again, that warm laughter filled his thoughts. As they sat close, neither spoke for a while. The silence was not empty. It was full of meaning. It was full of a growing bond that neither could deny. Deep inside the palace, King Thalos stood at a tall window. He looked out toward the garden, where two small figures sat side by side. He closed his eyes and whispered to himself, "Perhaps this is the path fate chooses." The days passed, but Ethan didn't leave Theralis. The human engineers had completed their task, but Ethan requested to stay longer under the reason of cultural research. No one questioned it directly, though many guessed the real reason. The palace staff saw him almost daily in the royal garden. It's always near the quiet blue tree where Leora liked to sit. Their talks had changed. They no longer spoke only of stars and stories. Now they asked about each other, what made them happy, what hurt them, what they dreamed of. Leora shared how she used to cry alone at night as a child, thinking she had no purpose. She wasn't. Trained in combat like her brothers, she wasn't sent to schools like the other royal children. She was kept inside, safe but hidden. Ethan listened carefully. He didn't interrupt. Never told her to be strong or look at the bright side. He simply said, "You matter more than they know." That made her feel seen. Truly. Scene. One evening, Leora told him something new. "I hear voices in the palace," she said. "They speak of us." Ethan nodded. "I thought so. I see how they watch us. Some say, 'You only visit me out of kindness,'" she added softly. "Do you believe that?" Ethan asked. "No," she said, "'cause when you speak, your voice does not carry lies. I feel truth in it." Ethan looked at her, wondering how someone could be so quiet yet so brave. What they didn't know was that royal advisors had begun meeting in secret. Some nobles believed Ethan's presence was dangerous. It's not because he was violent, but because he was human, and more importantly, because he was getting close to the king's only daughter. "The people will never accept this," said one advisor. "She is blind, weak. He is human." "It's not a royal match," said another. King Thalos heard all their arguments, sat on his throne, eyes closed, letting them speak. When they finished, he simply said, "Observe. That is all. Do nothing." They didn't understand why he allowed the visits to continue, and no one dared disobey. Meanwhile, Ethan and Leora grew even closer. Sometimes she would place her hand in his, and they would sit in silence, letting the breeze speak for them. One day, Ethan brought her a small gift, a carved crystal from Earth that caught sunlight and made little rainbows. "Describe it to me," she said. He held her hand, placed the crystal in her palm, and said, "It's smooth and cool. Sunlight passes through. It spreads colors across the garden. Like your voice makes my thoughts brighter." She held it tightly and smiled. "Thank you. It feels like a piece of your world." After that, she wore the crystal on a thin string around her neck every day, but not everyone was happy. Prince Valek, Leora's older brother and newly married prince, was furious when he heard about their meetings. "He is not one of us," Valek said to the king. "She is being fooled, is she?" the king asked calmly. Valek didn't answer. Instead, he sent guards to watch their meetings from afar, and he instructed servants to delay Ethan with small problems, hoping the human would get tired and leave. But Ethan didn't stop visiting, not even once. Then, one day, everything changed. Ethan arrived at the garden late, had been stopped 3 times by different palace guards for no clear reason. When he finally got there, Leora wasn't smiling. Her hands were trembling slightly. "Told me to send you away," she said. Ethan sat beside her quickly. "Who?" "My brother, his wife, the advisors. They said you will hurt the royal name." Ethan's chest tightened. He looked down, unsure of what to say. "Do Do you believe that? She asked. Never, he said firmly. But if staying here puts you in danger, I'll leave. Leora turned her face toward him. Do you want to leave? No, he said. I want to stay with you. Then stay. Ethan looked around, worried. What if they try to force you? Or me? She reached for his hand. Then we face them together. Her voice had never sounded stronger. That moment, King Thalos arrived. Quietly, without guards or warning. He stood beneath the tree, looking at them. Neither had noticed his arrival. Your bond is strong, he said, breaking the silence. Ethan stood up quickly, nervous. Your Majesty. The king raised his hand gently. Relax, human. I have watched. I have listened. Now I will speak. Leora stood too, her head high. Father, I love him. Ethan's eyes widened. She continued, I know he is not of our kind. I know I am not what others expect. But this man makes me feel whole. King Thalos looked at them both. Then slowly he smiled. Then you will have my blessing. Ethan was stunned. Wait, you mean? Yes, said the king. You both agree you may marry. Before Ethan could respond, Leora turned to him. Do you choose me, Ethan? He didn't hesitate. I do. And that was the beginning of something no one in Theralis expected. News spread through the palace like a fire in dry leaves. King Thalos had given his blessing for a marriage between his blind daughter and a human guest. Many couldn't believe it. Nobles whispered in long halls. Servants spoke behind closed doors. Some said it was a mistake. Others thought the king had gone soft with age. But the king did not take back his words. He called a royal gathering the very next day. Nobles, advisors, royal family members, and even foreign guests were ordered to attend. The Golden Hall, where important announcements were made, was filled with silent tension. Ethan stood beside Leora, both facing the king's throne. He wore a formal human suit, and Leora wore a long, flowing robe of soft white and silver. Crystal Ethan had given her hung from her neck, shining faintly in the light. She held his hand firmly, her expression calm. The king rose from his throne and looked around the hall. I speak not only as your ruler, he said, but as a father. His voice echoed with authority. No one moved. My daughter Leora has chosen a path not marked by tradition. She has chosen love, not politics. Truth, not appearance. And I support her. Gasps filled the room. A few voices began to murmur, but the king raised his hand. Some say she is weak. I say she is strong. Some say the human is unworthy. I say he is honorable. Velek, the eldest son, stepped forward. Father, this is against our ways. She is royal, and he is not even Zalari. The king looked at him with calm eyes. What makes one royal, Velek? Blood or action? Velek had no answer. He stepped back in silence. From this day, the king continued, Ethan of Earth will be known as Leora's chosen. Their union will be respected. Prepare for a wedding. Hall burst into noise. Some applauded, some shouted in anger. But none dared stand against the king openly. Later that evening, Ethan walked with Leora in the garden. That was loud, he said with a small smile. Leora laughed softly. Well. You handled it well. I didn't do anything, he said. You stood by me, she replied. That is everything. As preparations for the wedding began, the mood in the palace shifted. Some nobles left quietly, refusing to support the union. Others stayed but looked with cold eyes. A few younger nobles, however, showed support. Curious about this new kind of love, Ethan began learning more about Zilari customs. He practiced simple gestures, learned the ways of greeting, and memorized the proper phrases for the ceremony. Leora guided him with patience. They spent many hours together, preparing not just for the event, but for the life after. One evening, as they sat beneath their favorite tree, Ethan asked, Are you sure? We could still walk away from this, live quietly, somewhere far. Leora turned her head toward him. I do not want quiet hiding anymore. I want a life with you, even if others stare." He took her hand and nodded, "Then we face it together." Behind the scenes, Prince Velek was not done. He visited the royal council chamber and spoke to a few trusted nobles. "We must stop this," he said. "My sister marrying a human weakens our bloodline." "But the king supports it," one noble said nervously. "The king is aging," Velek whispered, "and too forgiving. We must protect the empire's strength." They began planning quietly, hoping to delay or ruin the wedding without being seen. But one of the guards overheard part of their talk and told the king. King Thalos did not show anger. Instead, he summoned Velek privately. "You fear change," the king said calmly. "Fear makes poor decisions." "Father, I only do what I believe is best," Velek replied. "Then show it. Attend the wedding. Bless them. Show the people unity." Velek looked away. "I will not stop it, but I will not smile either." "That is your choice," the king said, "but history will remember who stood in the way of peace." As the wedding day came closer, guests from across the stars arrived. Humans and aliens gathered in Theralis, curious to witness the union between worlds. The event was no longer just a royal wedding. It became a symbol. A day before the wedding, Ethan visited Leora in her private chamber. "One more night," he said gently. She smiled. "Etho, nervous." "A little," he admitted. "Not because of the ceremony, but because I want to be good enough for you." "You already are," she whispered. He leaned forward and kissed her forehead. "Then tomorrow, we begin." Outside her chamber, the stars shone bright. The palace lights glowed gently, and though shadows of doubt still moved through some hearts, a stronger light had already begun to shine. A light born from truth, respect, and the bond between two souls from different worlds. The morning of the wedding dawned calmly. Soft light filtered through crystal windows. Faint music drifted from the halls. Ethan woke and dressed carefully in a dark blue formal suit that blended human cut with Zillary accents. He fastened a small brooch, a gift from Leora, with a silver flower design. He touched it gently and thought of her. Liora sat before a mirror made of liquid silver. Attendants brushed her silver hair and wrapped her in a long white robe with tiny glowing threads. She could not see herself, but she felt the soft cloth and smelled the gentle scent of alien flowers woven into her hair. Her heart beat with a warm excitement. Outside her chamber, Ethan arrived. He paused at the door, hearing faint telepathic notes of welcome from Leora's mind. He stepped inside quietly. "You look beautiful," he said softly. "Thank you." She replied, her voice was calm but joyful. "I feel ready." He took her hand. She led him to the grand corridor. Attendants opened doors and let them pass. The palace was silent except for their footsteps. They entered the golden hall. Walls of amber crystal bathed the room in a warm glow. Tall pillars carved with scenes of Zilari history framed the space. Guests from many worlds filled seats. Humans, in simple gowns, aliens in robes of every color. Silence swept over them as the couple stood before the king's throne. King Thalos sat with calm strength. Beside him, Velek and other royals watched. Some faces were kind. Others were guarded. But all eyes were on Leora and Ethan. The ceremony began with a soft chant. A group of Zilari chanters stood in a circle, weaving light patterns with their minds. The lights danced above the couple in gentle waves. Ethan felt a shiver of wonder. The high priestess stepped forward. She was an elder Zilari, with pale skin and bright eyes. She spoke in telepathic words that Leora's mind translated for Ethan. "We gather to unite two hearts. Though they come from different worlds, their bond is true." Then came the vows. First Leora spoke. She raised her free hand toward Ethan and sent her words into his mind. "I stand here, daughter of the king. I vow to love you, protect you, and share my life with you. Your kindness taught me that love is stronger than sight." Ethan felt her words gently echo inside him, his heart filled with warmth. Then it was his turn. He knelt before Leora and bowed his head respectfully. His voice came quietly. "I stand here, guest of this empire. I vow to love you, honor you, and walk by your side always. You showed me that true strength is in the heart." Leora's mind glowed with happiness. Attendants released small sparks of light into the air. Guests gasped in wonder as the light swirled around the couple and settled into a soft glow connecting their chests. Next, the king spoke. He rose and looked at everyone. His voice was clear and deep. "This union is not just for my daughter and a human. It is a bond between two peoples. Let it guide us to new paths of peace and understanding." Some nobles whispered. A few shook their heads. But many felt moved by his words. Then the final blessing came. The high priestess touched both their hands and sent a gentle pulse of energy. Ethan felt a warm glow flow through him. Leora felt the same. They knew their lives were joined not just by words, but by this quiet magic of the Ziller. After the ritual, guests rose and began to applaud. The sound echoed like gentle rain. Human. Friends smiled. Some Zillari nodded in respect. Even Prince Velix stood and clapped, though his face was serious. Ethan watched him and saw a hint of acceptance. The wedding feast followed. Long tables were set beneath floating gardens. Food from many worlds sparkled on plates. Ethan tasted. Small fruit that changed flavor as he chewed. Leora laughed as he described what he tasted. She offered him taste samples, trusting him to describe each one. They ate together, hand in hand. They talked softly about their future, Ethan promised. To help her learn more about Earth, Leora promised to teach him more Zillari customs. Each promise was sealed with a small touch and a shared smile. During the feast, the high priestess called for a toast. She raised a crystal cup filled with a glowing liquid. To Leora and Ethan, may their love light the way for all worlds. Guests lifted their cups. Some repeated the words in human languages, some in alien tongues. Ethan and Leora drank and felt a gentle warmth spread through them. Then unexpected words came from the high priestess. The blind see with the heart. The guest sees with respect. They share a gift none can take. The hall fell silent, then burst into applause again. Even the most doubtful faces brightened at her praise, as the sun set over Thurles. Ethan and Leora walked into the open gardens. Lanterns of soft light floated above them. Leora reached out and touched a lantern. It quivered gently as if alive. "This is our new beginning," she said. He wrapped his arm around her. "And I will be with you every step." They stood together. Under the twin suns of Thurles, feeling the gentle breeze, the palace behind them shimmered with promise. The kingdom around them began to see that love was not a weakness. It was a strength that could heal and unite in that moment. Under alien skies, a human and a blind princess found hope not just for themselves, but for two worlds. Their wedding was more than a ceremony. It was the start of a brighter future where difference was celebrated and love led the way. Days after the wedding, peace settled like soft dust over the royal palace. But that peace did not mean quiet. Now Leora and Ethan were no longer just two souls in the garden. They were a couple joined by marriage, tied not only by love, but by the attention of two civilizations. The palace gave them private quarters, filled with soft light, calm air, and music that shifted with their moods. The place had been chosen by Leora herself. It was near her favorite tree and close enough to the royal council, in case they were needed. Each morning, Leora would listen to the winds and walk slowly with Ethan through the garden paths. She used her cane, but more often she simply held Ethan's hand. He described everything he saw: birds, servants, and even the clouds. He had learned how to speak in colors, in feelings, and in shapes, so she could imagine the world through his words. She loved hearing him talk, but life after a royal wedding wasn't simple. Noble families still whispered behind closed doors. Some said the marriage was a political move. Others claimed it was a mistake that would weaken the royal line. A few called Ethan a clever outsider who had tricked a blind princess. Ethan heard the rumors. At first they made him angry. He never showed it in front of Leora. He smiled, walked with her, and helped her continue her work, because Leora had a mission. She didn't want to sit quietly in a royal chair. She wanted to help others, especially those who were like her. She began a project to build a new place in Thurles, a center for those who were blind, weak, or born with differences. "We are not broken," she said. "We are whole in different ways." Ethan helped her design the center. He used human tools to create soft learning walls, shape-guided books, and sound maps. Many young Zalari came to visit and thanked Leora for giving them hope. Even some nobles changed their minds when they saw what she had built. One evening, while sitting beside a warm fire in their chamber, Ethan asked, "Are you tired?" Leora shook her head. "I've waited so long to be seen. Now that I'm seen, I don't want to stop." Ethan nodded. "You're doing something big?" She smiled and rested her head on his shoulder. "We're doing it together." Trouble was never far. A small group of angry nobles had started gathering again. They called themselves Keepers of Tradition. They believed the marriage should be undone, and they began writing letters, speaking secretly, and trying to build support. One of them, a noble named Siren, spoke to Prince Velek. "You must act," Siren said. "Your sister's marriage has made the house look weak." Velek sat in silence for a long time. Finally, he said, "I don't agree with her choice, but I won't fight it." Siren stood. "Then you're no prince to me." Velek looked him in the eye. "Then leave my sight." And Siren did. That same night, King Thalos called Ethan to his private chamber. The king stood at the window, watching the stars. "They're restless," he said. "I know," Ethan replied. "Some of them think you're here to take something." Ethan shook his head. "I'm only here because Leora chose me, and I chose her." The king turned. "I believe that. I see what you've done, not just with her, but for her." He walked closer. "Ethan, you are not just a guest anymore. You are part of this house. You must be ready." "Ready for what?" "To protect what matters, to stand for her. Your bond, and maybe one day to lead." Ethan felt the weight of those words. He had never thought of ruling or leading. But for Leora, he would do anything. He bowed his head. "I will be ready." The next day, Leora received a letter. It was unsigned. The words were simple. "You do not belong. Leave while you still can." She let Ethan read it. He looked at her. Waiting for her reaction, she tore the letter in two and dropped it in a small fire. "I belong wherever love exists," she said. But the message was clear. Not everyone had accepted them. Instead of hiding, Leora did something bold. She asked for an open meeting in the royal hall, so anyone from the noble families could attend. On that day, she entered with Ethan by her side. "You may speak," the king said. Liora stood before the crowd, her voice steady. "I have heard the whispers," she said. "I have felt the cold stares. But I ask you this, when did love become a weakness?" No one answered. "I may not see with eyes," she said, "but I see with truth. Ethan has never asked for power. He has only given support. And I have used that strength to help others like me." She paused. "If you think that weakens the royal name, then maybe it was never strong to begin with." Some nobles looked down, ashamed. Few nodded in agreement. The king stood. "My daughter speaks with wisdom. Let this be the last time her love is questioned." The room stayed silent after the meeting as Leora and Ethan walked back to their chambers. She whispered, "Did I say too much?" Ethan smiled. "No. You said what needed to be said." Weeks turned into months. Slowly, the noise around Ethan and Leora's marriage began to fade. Those who once whispered now remained silent. Some nobles still refused to show support, but they also stopped standing in the way. Most had come to accept what they once feared. Others had been inspired. Life for Ethan and Leora moved forward with calm purpose. Together, they continued their work at the new learning center. Blind and disabled children from across Thurles now visited it regularly. There were games for learning sound maps, spaces for creating art through touch, and areas where stories were shared through music. Leora often sat with the children, letting them touch her hands and face. She told them, "We are different, not broken." Her presence gave them courage. Her voice gave them strength. Ethan, on the other hand, worked with young engineers, both Zelari and human. He shared human methods for building simple but powerful tools. One design of voice stone that turned sound into shape became very popular in the kingdom. They named it the Leora Stone. The bond between the human and the princess was no longer just a symbol of love. It became a force for change. One day, as they walked through the garden, Leora paused and tilted her head toward Ethan. She took his hand and placed it gently on her belly. He looked at her, confused for a moment, then his eyes widened. "Really?" She nodded. "Yes, the healers confirmed it today. Wanted you to be the first to know." Tears came to Ethan's eyes. He knelt beside her and held her tightly. "You're going to be an amazing mother," she laughed. "And you, a kind father?" Word of the news reached the king by nightfall. King Thalos called for them to join him in the Star Room High, place in the palace, open to the sky. When they arrived, the king looked at them with soft eyes. "This child," he said, "will carry the blood of two worlds. Their heart will be stronger than war. Their mind will be wider than fear." He placed his hand on Leora's shoulder, then on Ethan's. "You have already given me peace in my old age. Now you give me something more hope for the future." Announcement of the child reached every part of the kingdom. Some reacted with surprise. Others celebrated openly. A few still feared change. But no one could stop the tide that had begun to rise. Months later, when the time came, Leora gave birth inside the royal healing chamber. It was a quiet moment, filled with warmth and light. The baby was born healthy, part Zelari, part human. The child had Leora's soft, glowing eyes and Ethan's warm smile. The baby's skin shimmered with a gentle silver hue and had soft brown patches like earth soil. The healers said the child was strong, peaceful, and already very aware. They named the baby Nail, a name that meant between stars in the ancient Zelari tongue. The day of Neil's naming ceremony was like no other. The royal garden was filled again, not with doubt or debate, but with joy. Guests from many planets came to witness the celebration. King Thalos, holding his grandchild, spoke proudly to the crowd. "Once we believed bloodlines made us noble," he said. "But today, we see that love is what truly shapes a future." Then he looked at Ethan and Leora. "This union did not weaken our house, it saved it." Nail giggled softly in the king's arms, and the crowd laughed with warmth. After the ceremony, Velik approached Ethan for the first time in weeks. Didn't say much, only offered a small nod and whispered, "You've done well." Ethan nodded back. It was enough. As years passed, Ethan and Leora continued their life together. Their child grew fast, smart, and kind. Nail could understand languages from both worlds and often surprised visitors with deep questions. The learning center grew into a full academy. Laura became known as the Heart of Theralis, while Ethan became its bridge to other civilizations. One day, as the sun set and they sat together under the same blue tree where they first met, Leora asked, "Do you remember the first thing you said to me?" Ethan smiled. "I think it was, 'I hope I'm not disturbing you.'" She chuckled. "You were nervous?" "I was enchanted," he replied. She reached for his hand. "Thank you for choosing me." "Thank you for seeing me," he said, "even when I didn't know I was lost." Above them, the stars of Theralis began to shine. Some were old, some new, but all burned together in the same sky, just like them.